Good evening, everyone. I'd like to bring Woodstock Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Thursday, November 2nd, 2023 to order. Thank you all for coming. We'll go through the roll. Wait, start us off. Mark Blackmer, Joseph Adeletta,
Doug Porter.
Dean Gould, Jeffrey Marcotte. Appears we have a forum, but we're gonna need some alternates. Let's see, going alphabetical order, it's Dean, Doug, and Dwight. Tell you what. I'm not gonna go with alphabetical order, you're all gonna get seated. So thank you for that. Here's the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible. Here's the report. I would like to thank everybody for coming and staff for putting together all this, everything together behind the scenes for us. Gonna try to remember to speak up instead of mumbling. People can hear me. The Lou Center for the arts the other night, I had 2 microphones, I was moving it out. I would like to report, plus or minus a day or two, there's only 140 days left until spring, so. I was asking Cameron if he had to scrape his windshield in Groton this morning, and he said he did, so. It was cold all the way down here to the shore, so. Citizens comments. So anyone would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda tonight, we would like to hear from you. Roger, you like to speak to us?
Well, Jeff asked me to attend to talk to you about the, give you a rundown on the Water Pollution Control Authority. Can you hear me? I'm Roger Gale.
Thank you.
From the WPCA. And so I'll just give you a real brief rundown of what our commission, 5-member board of volunteers is responsible for. And you don't realize it until you have high water mark and begin to see flooding and get calls that pumps aren't working correctly. But anyways, we have 131 to 35 customers, residential customers, and 9 commercial industrial customers. The 9 industrial commercial customers, we have meters. Can you hear me all right? Oh. The 9 customer industrial customers are Line Master, the schools, Jeffco down in the industrial park, and they can always use more work down. I mean, more businesses down there. They have a lot of empty space down there, so if anyone's looking for space, they've got quite a bit of it. But we bill customers. We're nothing but a big collection system for Woodstock of wastewater. We're a big customer to send it to Putnam, and they treat it. And they meter it, and we pay by the 1,000 gallons. And it's a pretty hefty price that we pay those guys to treat our water, but where else can we go? And the board is responsible. We have 1 pump station at the fairgrounds, and that's most of the system is either gravity feed or low pressure from pumps that are in wet wells in people's yards. Anyone that is below level of the main line has a wet well like your cesspools used to be, or septic tanks used to be. And then it's pumped up to the main line. So we've got 26 of those, and for some reason, when the system was accepted by the town, the WPCA took on the responsibility of maintaining these wells. And since October of 2015, we've changed the policy and procedures. So as the homes with these wet wells are changed ownership, we relinquish the responsibility and the new owner takes responsibility. Not that we won't assist them, because we don't want to just leave them high and dry. But we're trying to get out from underneath having that responsibility. We don't have any maintenance people, any maintenance work that we need done in anywhere. We have to hire out. It's usually the same people. Deep Six works, does a lot of work for us, and we're trying to get a little bit of assistance for him. And then, of course, pumping, the local pump, septic pump station, pump companies. Although with A1 gone and Parent gone, we're getting a little bit of a bind. And they were real easy to deal with. And you get these out of town companies coming in, it's a little bit more difficult. So, but everything, we only have one staff member, and that's an executive assistant that's part-time, and she maintains the office and whatever else needs them. We have her listed as an executive assistant. And the office is open about 4 hours a week in the town hall. So and keeps all our records up to date. Anything other businesses such as you people need, you have to build an office to go to. We have one person 4 hours a week. The town has not paid a cent for this collection system since its development in 1995. They bonded the construction of it for 20 years, and the only people that paid are the people on the system. They paid both a user fee and also a bond fee to pay off the bond, and that was paid off, I think, in like 2015, somewhere around that area. And then when the academy came on board, because the academy was a private institution, they couldn't get a bond, so the town took out a bond, and there again, the academy is paying that off through payments to the town. So the complete collection system hasn't cost the town a cent. So only the people on it pay for using it, and like I said before, they paid off the bond. So other than that, I have a map over here that I can to show you where the boundary lines are. Because we're a rural community, we're allowed to have a sewer avoidance act policy, which says that anyone that is not within the boundaries that I don't know whether you can see it, there are dotted lines on this. That's the boundaries of the sewer system. And anyone not in that sewer system, we don't have to take on board. So we've refused a few people, someone in the backyard of another house. They've had 2 or 3 acres. As long as they have space for a septic system, we don't have to take them on board as because we're a rural community, the state allows us that sewer avoidance act. So,
You can, Roger. Amy, I'd like to note from the record that David North joined us at 7:39. Thank you. So the Sewer Avoidance Act says
the sewer
you're not
avoidance act,
in the boundary. You can't
if you're not within the boundaries of the sewer system, unless, you're, got a failed system and have no other place to, put your refuge, we would have to take you on or to, could get to our system, run a line to our system, but we refuse people in backyards that the neighbor will say, yeah, you can run through my property and attach to it, but he was out of the system and he had plenty of land to put a septic system on. He said no. And then just last month, the inn wanted to subdivide and join our system. The inn was on it, but we accepted them on the system from the get-go. And so once they subdivided, it's not within the system. We refused to take, and they had room for a septic system. So, and let's see, that's about the heavy part of the city system. We have one pump station, and at the fairground, and there's a little bit of a rise there to get over to Butts Road, where our line runs down Butts Road. And so we have to pump it up over that little bit of a hill there. And it's right near the fairgrounds and the streams that are running into Roseland Park. So we have to make sure those pumps are running all the time. They collect all these sewage from the brook on north. Just to point out where we're here, let's see, let's turn around here a bit.
I also have the map going on there.
Oh,
The map
okay.
shows the sewer district.
Good, yeah. So that was something that we just added to that, not too long ago. If anyone, I can look at that map up there.
This was the map that we included in the plan of conservation and development.
This
So it
one,
shows all the non-land use districts.
is this the Hatchwork,
The pink,
this part here?
yeah, that's the sewer.
Okay, and up to here. So we run up to 171 to not quite to Plain Hill Road. We go north to the Academy, although none of the houses on Woodstock Hill are within the sewer district. It's just thin line as it comes down through through the town hall, this area here. And then it had the road that goes to the elementary school. Up there in the Lingard Village. Is we put they were added quite a while ago from the get-go, but they had that pollution problem over there. So other than that, that's a quick rundown. Let's go.
Yeah, the sewer avoid policy, is that based on capacity limits at the Putnam, plant contract between Woodstock and Putnam is how many thousands of gallons a year?
No, what we did have a 20-year contract with the town of Putnam. But since I've been on the board, which has been quite a while, we've never signed a new contract. They've renovated their plant down there, and they have no problem taking as much as we can send them. They'll charge us. They'll happily charge us everything.
Pipe sizes are not a limitation, at maybe at some point, the
Pardon?
existing pipe sizes?
Going down from the pumping station on down through Butts Road. I think is, will accept almost, all we could send it.
Oh, okay,
Some of the, smaller, we have a few low pressure lines going up 171 to, where Mr. Vonderheide. His was the last house there. There's 2 or 3 manholes in the street there. And then, there's another couple of low pressure lines that are down in Lincoln Village. On the low part of the hill, it really starts falling off there. A couple of houses down there at wet wells.
there used to be a water, an infiltration problem that added to the effluent flow to the piping plant. Is that still an issue, do you know, or?
To their plant down there?
Yeah.
No, I don't think since, we haven't had any, they were accusing us at one time, I mean, we've been helping them overflow their system, at one time, but I really don't think it was us, we couldn't send them enough to overflow the system. And now they've, renovated their plant. I think they just took on, Pomfret. As a customer. So,
Just one last question.
Sure.
The pumping station you said is at the Woodstock Fairground. Are they on the sewer line because the pumping station's there?
yes,
Fairground,
the-
the restaurant, all of that.
the fairground is on that, so. In fact, they're they're the only one, they have a meter in their system when it's working. That measures the outflow.
Yeah.
Where all the other 8 other industrial customers, we measure their water that they use. They have meters on their water use. But my feeling is they have big infrastructures in the ground, their pipes in the ground running between buildings like the fairgrounds, the Chepco, Wine Master, the Academy, and there's a lot of room for I&I, which is leakage. That gets clean water getting into us, rainwater. So,
I think that's what Joe was asking, right?
yeah. We do, we're right now, we got ARPA funds for, and we're doing a big study of our system. So about 30 years old now. So we're doing a big study of the system, and they're checking all manholes and all our lines to see how they're holding up and what we can expect for problems. So they're just finishing that up now. Nelson, anything?
I certainly got some good information out of it, Roger. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming out tonight.
Oh. Another night out.
Are there any other citizen comments? Hearing none, we have some meeting minutes from October 19th to approve. Question, Cameron? I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes. Second. Motion by Dwight Reinowitz to approve the minutes, second by Joel Letter. All in favor? Or I should say, is there any discussion? Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Oh, one, I think there was, just that. Oh, yeah, page 1, October 19, section 5, public hearing. It said the hearing opened at ampersand 45 p.m. That's what the PZC November or 7:45. Good chance. I saw it. Change it. I just made it look like it. There should have been a 7. So noted. Amy, can you clean that up for us? Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So passes, thank you. All the same. All abstained too. Still passes. Yeah, we abstain.
Mark, Dean, David, you all right?
Yep. That brings us to agenda item 5, new business. And all should have had in your packet, then before you zone memo from Delia. I turn it over to Delia to discuss this with us.
Let's see if I can find that file so I can show it on the screen. Thank you. Excuse me. So as much as I like talking about a topic for months and years at a time, I'd like to propose a new process for text amendments. And I think this would work out better. So the process we've been using, the commission brings in either regulations or parts of regulations that you like. And you have me put it together and then we go over it line by line for a very long time. And I'm thinking that it might work better if we, before we get to the point where we look at other towns' regulations, that we start by asking questions about what's the problem that you want to address, or what's the opportunity that you want to allow. And we start from there. So I've outlined the pros and cons and the process in the memo, and I can answer questions if you have any. And other than that, we can talk about what topic you'd like to tackle next. If you have any thoughts about the memo or the process, I'd love to hear it.
I thought that a proposal, very reasonable. Give us a chance to talk about what might be, coming before us. What we hear about is a potential issue in town. As a commission, we might discuss it. See if others are aware of, the issue. I tackle the process to better identify the topic and point out what we want for stock in terms of its regulatory.
And if you're in the audience, if you want a copy, there's one on this table here. But sometimes we hear about a complaint, about a whatever kind of problem or the issue is. And I think we should start figuring out if the problem is actually a zoning problem that you have the authority to address. Because many problems in town may be real problems, they just may not be the purview of this commission. So we'd have to keep that in mind, because some things zoning can't address. So if you like this process, then we can use it to follow the next time we want to do an amendment. And we can talk about what topics you want to work on.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
So you're closing part, which is try piecing this and that. That gets a little confusing. Trying to follow this outline. With all matters.
While you're thinking about it, at NECOG, we're thinking of putting together a regional discussion. It happens to be on affordable housing or on multifamily housing particularly. And I'd like to use this process, but I was hoping to have people from as many towns as we can get to come together and do this process. And then we can see what we can do in the region to encourage towns to re-examine their regulations.
During our affordable housing plan put together long time.
one of the things that we discussed, or one of the things that I took away from it, is I think that we need to look into some 2 or 3 family or multi-family houses to help. Pretty small for housing to stuff.
So is multifamily housing a topic you'd like to work on next?
I'm throwing it out there. It was something that we discussed. Yes, I would like to know.
Topic I would like to address first is penalties or fines if people do not follow our rules and our regulations. As I mentioned last meeting, we have a book full of regulations. Unless we're going to enforce it, they're not that helpful. If we have a couple of examples right now, where we have people that are not following their rules and are not really paying attention to try to enforce it. And some kind of a penalty might get their attention. I know I've heard, I think Rich, our attorney, said that something in the state that allows us to do it automatically. I think I heard that there was a reluctance on the town's part to have penalties. It's become clear that people are ignoring the regulations because there's no financial impact.
I did notice today that a certain spot on 169 in South Woodstock looks different.
It does, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And there's a place that's further up on 169 that also is. So I think our zoning officer, they have made some site visits.
Well, if you look, you can still see the sign. Up in the bucket there.
I was just worried that the one in Southwood stop, don't know if they relocate to the back of the property.
I just happened to go by there this afternoon, and I kind of bent my neck to look in there, but I couldn't see, so. And I've come up through there the last 3 or 4 days, and I hadn't noticed it, so today, I don't think it was all today, or if they did it.
These are all, but I noticed it too.
Someone had asked on Facebook and they said that they're just moving it to the back. They didn't leave, they're just restructuring the site.
And that's what they told us
Yep.
they would do, which is great.
No, that's what they're doing. They clarified.
And that's the key, because I don't want people to think that the commission's anti-business. We just, if we have an agreement, this is what's gonna be done. We wish you success, but we expect you to follow what you told us you're gonna do.
Do they have what, 90 days? File
For a special permit, it's
that.
for a subdivision, we have 90 days, and then you can get 2 exceeds.
It's probably been,
Different for special permits,
it's probably been 90, so now,
around then.
June, July, maybe. So,
That's a perfect example of why I think we need to have some penalties. Because they were in non-compliance with their original approval. They have an approval for something new, but they have no incentive to do it.
Okay.
Until that 6-month period comes up. And then they have a problem because they have to do it.
Your zoning officer could always follow up on something like that.
I think it is.
Jeff was just trying to take a look about. Probably have it somewhere here, the strategic plan that we had been referring to every once in a while. Different topics we were looking to take off it. At one point, the cannabis regulations obviously were important. That's been addressed. Airbnb came up as something that I think we still need to at least talk about. I think home occupation was the subject that we wanted to try and clarify a little bit more. I think maybe the updated. Thank you. The updated form might be more helpful, although it doesn't sound like there's been a lot of activity. Of occupation application. These contact reports coming in that none are have been submitted. Some agricultural or from farm stores versus farm stands. Markets, trying to better define our regulations, what the differences are. So those are just a few of the things that come to mind to comment to Delia about what's that we would approach some of these subjects. And part of it, Jeff, might just be a group discussion. What commissioners feel about the different topics, certainly organize them in certain prior. Start with that kind of discussion, give Delia a sense of and desire of the commission.
Well, and it's certainly up to members of the commission to determine that, sitting here as the moderator, so.
You're the chair. Got the big
Point
shoes.
well taken, Dave.
This is the last one I would have on the file. Do you know what date it's the one you're looking at?
January 2021.
I guess I don't have that one with me. Maybe you can email it to me.
Doug was kind enough to take it from the well-organized binder.
You're organized by tonight, today, well, I'm right up to
Pop right up.
date.
But we may want to just talk amongst ourselves.
Make a new one if you want.
Sure, right. One thing I'd like to throw out at some point is maybe looking at definitions, if we have to add some more. Something like manufacturing that come up when talking about an application, and there's a comment that we don't define manufacturing. Light industrial. Retail, the special permit requirements. I think off the cuff comment that manufacturing was really defined. So I thought it was kind of common sense approach that light industrial would apply manufacturing, but if necessary to have a definition of manufacturing. So. Question about that. Helpful.
You know, this is-
I tried to write it all down.
Andy said you could ask.
Yeah. Do you want to read any of these? If you have the list,
You can read this as well, right?
and I think Jeff touched on it, to review the multifamily housing, but also maybe use application. Use approaches in town. Maybe more clearly define that, so different properties might be used more permissibly than they can be now.
If it's gonna be a while before we do another amendment, I will update the regs, because we've had 2 amendments since I last printed it. But if we're gonna do one right away, again, a lot, it takes a lot of work to put it all together and then you have to print it. If we're gonna do it right away, I'd rather wait.
Right away seems idealistic.
But this new process, it's gonna work better than it has in the past.
Okay. And just to throw it out, our POCD is probably coming up for some thoughts to when to update it, or at least look at it to say that what we have is okay.
You do have to at least send a new updated version to the state every 10 years.
Right, and I think we just.
Or
2015,
late,
3 years. Now we have 3 years.
it says 2015,
Oh, I thought it was 2015.
but most of
you
the
get
text
2
refers
years.
to 2014.
Maybe we should start working on that.
Yes. So if you're trying to think of things to put on the agenda, yeah, there usually got.
Delia wrote them all down, because Delia now creates the agenda. She does a fantastic job.
Okay.
Well, you'll have to decide what's your priority. but the POCD deadline is coming up, that might be one. But affordable housing is something that you should look at. We just finished the housing plan.
It might be worthwhile defining attainable housing.
Any other discussion?
Hearing none,
It would help me if I know what your priorities.
all right,
I wanna pick some.
get on. Ask. POC,
Was approved in 2016. We had all of the records. We're already happy.
And I think there are options on that, right? The commission can review it, maybe put the existing one out for public comment. To see if there's any suggestions on changes. It doesn't necessarily have to be changed. I understand it. You know, we've done some pretty serious public hearings in the past to get input on different sites. Take some time, try to get different boards and commissions in town to look at it and offer their suggestions and input.
We could do a survey of the town. If you want to do a separate survey of boards and commissions, you could do it that way.
I would suggest Commissioner reread the plan of conservation and development. There are a whole bunch of action steps that we have in my team. I had some time today, so I also read that. And I was really taken back at how little we've done under the plan of conservation and development. And a lot of the things, the issues that we're talking about, agriculture was one, liaison with the agricultural commission, get together, work together to address that, how to make it more feasible for farms to have other revenues.
Well, where do we stand on our Airbnb approach? I think that's maybe a first priority since we started it, and there are existing Airbnb sites, but we don't have a regulation for that. Something we know that is taking place in town, but not under defined regulation.
Something more discussed further that priority list as well. Obviously, gonna plan of conservation and development. This 2014, and this is June 1st, 2015.
It was a while to go through the public hearing process.
Big letters, town planner, Delia Bay.
To agree to it, we made changes.
I would.
Well, whoever we can.
I was home watching TV.
We can make up for it. Yeah.
Can we get maybe a request to the ZEO to see if they are finding any challenges that they have in interpreting applications or questions that come to them? They don't understand the regulation, they apply what I want to my business. So that might help steer us. the first project or second project. that we want.
Sure, I can reach out to them.
Joe, what are your thoughts on Airbnb?
But I think it's something we need to define better, we have clear regulations about that, so that it complements what we have for bed and breakfast, have that defined, and that's permitted in the community district, but it's defined as bed and breakfast. Don't think it, in my mind, the Airbnb property is not the same thing. I agree. So to give the CEO a little better tool available to help applicants who come in, say they want to operate an Airbnb. CEO some guidelines. There is a question I want to ask the town tax assessor, about whether there is an occupancy tax already on places like the Inn, people who rent rooms, you know, when they go to a hotel, there's always occupancy tax or city tax, mostly in the city, but will Airbnbs have, somebody who has an Airbnb, thinks that the organization Airbnb pays directly to the town tax for the fees for that particular unit. So in terms of economic development, where the town of Woodstock is not already doing that, perhaps that's something to make sure we're looking at that opportunity.
Do they charge the amount?
I meant to look that up, but
There's no occupancy tax.
not at all. Okay, and that's
That requires an ordinance from the town. One of their-
okay.
Occupancy tax is allowed at the state level.
Okay, yeah.
The town can do it, it has to be.
Yeah, and I didn't think it was a PNC area, but I thought it might be something. To consider.
Airbnb may be referring to the percentage of the zoning permit. Part of every zoning permit, some of it goes to the state. So
In this particular instance, the person that was saying it's starting that.
What town are they in?
Offer.
Oh. I don't know, maybe.
Concord doesn't have one. I don't know of any town who will do that.
Then maybe Airbnb is collecting something.
Well, no, a lot of people refer to things as taxes, which are fees.
Okay,
The state does have a zoning. We have a zoning permit, the state
Right.
has. Airbnb may say, well, whatever, residual. State is a town tax. It's amazing how much of what the zoning permits to the state. how little the state's
well, when you say zoning fee, that's a one-time application,
zoning permits.
learning permit.
How much is the state added? to our
$60.
zoning? $60.
$50, I think you get like $2 or $3 of it.
My impression from the person who's speaking, who's running this area, is that he sees the bill, he doesn't have to do anything. He sees the receipt from Airbnb that it goes to his bank account. And it goes to the town offer. That's how that fee, not that. Anyway, sounds like a source of revenue.
The first time I ever went to New York City, went to Manhattan. 7 or 8 years ago, I bought tickets to go see the Rockettes or the Christmas Spectacular at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. So after looking around some hotel sites, I got a room at the Waldorf Astoria. I paid as much for parking at the Waldorf Astoria as I did for the hotel room.
It was $75 for the night on Sunday night at the ballroom, $75 to park. But on the bill, when they added all the other stuff to it, there was. And I just looked it up, and I thought it was $1.50, and it was. It was $1.50 added to the bill for the Javits Center, and somehow it paid for the Javits.
If there was only 75, maybe you should complain.
Making Joe.
Fees
And then I did the math one time, I said, I figured there was X amount of hotel rooms in Manhattan. And $1.50, and there was a huge amount of money on $1.50 per hotel room. It added up, but I think the Javits Center got paid for a couple times. So, we don't have a Javits Center.
So what's your priority for me to work on?
I think we started thinking Airbnb thing. Continue that.
I agree.
But I'll take the devil's advocate here, and come back to Delia's questions. Where's the problem? Who's telling us it's a problem?
I think, in my mind, it's something that exists in town. We know there are people. We know that there's not any definition in our regulation. So it's not so much that it's a problem at the site, it's just that there are businesses in town that are really operating compliant regulation.
Again, just being the devil's advocate, we have a CEO who has issued permits to Airbnbs using the bed and breakfast regulations. He has interpreted our regulations and said that that works. Now, it's something we can decide that we don't like the way he's interpreting it. One of the things you do when you hire somebody involved, that's his decision on how those things are interpreted. If we disagree with him, then we need to change our regulations. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but if he's enforcing that, where's the problem?
Well, I think we can I can recognize that we don't have a definition for Airbnb, it's different than B&B. And it's kind of forcing the CEO to make a decision. If the commission feels that there's not an adequate definition for Airbnb type business for short-term rental plan, and I think it behooves us to go ahead and make something that gives the CEO the appropriate tool to deal with that. Opposed to interpreting. I think we've said the regulation should be relatively clear.
We also had a citizen complain about an Airbnb, but I don't know if it was to us directly or to the town, complaining about noise and stuff at an Airbnb that was next door to his house. It's kind of what started this. Now, whether that should be dealt with under the bed and breakfast thing or not, I don't know.
And I'll be another step of that, and devil's advocate. We have no noise regulation. And noise regulations are the most difficult to enforce. And we have no enforcement mechanism. So again, we're going down a path to generate regulations that we're going to struggle to enforce, and we have no way to enforce.
Well,
and back to your point, we had one person that complained. We had an audience full of people here that were against any additional regulations on it. If you look at the packets of information that we got from that meeting.
Oh, no, I was here.
There were a lot of them, and most of them were against us doing any additional regulation.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, maybe we should just let it slide under the bed and breakfast.
I'll be the devil's advocate. I don't necessarily disagree with what Jim was saying. But I'll come back to my own.
Or there would just be the title of Airbnb, there may not be any different regulation. But you have a title Airbnb versus bed and breakfast, or you can't call it a bed and breakfast and just call it short-term rental for anything.
I'm just curious, Joe, what do you think is the difference
between a
a
bed and
bed and
breakfast,
breakfast and an Airbnb?
and in my mind, a bed and breakfast is house where an owner lives that has, bedrooms available for people to come, and they offer a bed and offer breakfast. Short-term Airbnb or short-term rental. I have utilized is a dwelling unit that has no owner present. It leaves it up to the renter to use the space as the renter wants, whether to put there or not. You'll nobody to sleep there. It's really a different concept in my mind than bed and breakfast.
There are many short-term rentals that are just a room in a house.
Yeah.
That I utilize those,
Right, right. Which is,
which is almost, when you say you have access to their kitchen, and they're there. So there's a blurry lines between them all. I'm just trying to, not to muddy the water anymore, it already is.
yeah, well, I'm just giving my impression, like, as I said, bed and breakfast is a place where the owners are there and they make breakfast for you and, you get up in the morning.
I agree, that's kind of my gut feeling on interpretation. The bed and breakfast is, yeah, you got a bed, you got breakfast. Airbnb. You got run of the house and when you go out to eat or put there. It's,
So I have a question for you. Say if I go to Joe Schmo's,
Yep.
happens to be the same name but no relation, Joe Schmo's. Short-term rental, Airbnb, B&B, whatever it's called. And they offer me food, but I don't eat it because I can't eat it because I have food restrictions. How's that any different? I mean, I could not want to eat the food, and maybe I can't eat the food, or I have other plans.
Well, but that's how the business advertising itself. It called itself the Joe Schmo's bed and breakfast or Joe Schmo's Airbnb, and you get to me online and I'm there at the place, I'll leave the keys for you and.
So, but when we were talking about a possible regulation, there was a short-term rental that's hosted and unhosted. The hosted short-term rental, meaning whether I serve you some sort of edible food, it really seems like a tiny difference. So the bigger difference seems like whether it's hosted or unhosted.
Correct.
Is that really the big difference? Regardless of whether someone prepares food? Because people you can prepare it and no one eats it.
I think it's part of the language context. Bed and breakfast definition, like a hotel or a motel, there's a general concept of what does that mean. And how the individual utilizes it is different than what the concept implies. So to me, a bed and breakfast, if you get a bed, it's somebody feeds you. Eat it or not, it's not. That's the sense of what a bed and breakfast facility means. When you look up a bed and breakfast, it gives you that kind of. You go to a hotel, you get a room, it may be a restaurant. So there are different concepts to me, and that's all ongoing. And in my mind, a bed and breakfast is different than an Airbnb, where an Airbnb is somebody tells you the keys are in a lockbox, you get the combination, and the place is yours.
I think we've lost an awful lot of bed and breakfast in the last few years, so I just don't know if maybe the Airbnb or short-term rental is the modern version of that.
that's what I was gonna say, just, we need to lose the term. B&B. Short term, it's either hosted or non-hosted, short term rental. And whether the regulations, we've got a lot, whether they be hosted or unhosted, we heard from a lot of people. They're kind of working both ways. Some people want to pick the house out back. So they're living on the front, they're not necessarily in the same house, but that's the way it's been working. They may come into this house, who knows, but it's not saying they can't. Once you go, you can't have that. It's just, like Joseph, they're coming in for I'm assuming we need a home occupation permit for either one. And if they've got a business at home, are they supposed to have a home occupation permit, or we say you can have run the Airbnb without any problem.
I guess if you're gonna write any regulations, that's the question we address.
No, do we? I'm just not sure myself on, well, it's not talking about the application for a home occupation permit. And talking for the definition of home occupation. Is it, again, my first thought, home occupation is an accountant or something like this who has their office there, one person is finding their house. Right. Got a home occupation permit because somebody's gonna want their business. There's never see the customer here, but they park their trucks here. So whether they're required by the town, I know people have them, they have a home occupation permit, for parking their equipment there. But you don't give them in their house. It's required for home occupation, why do you need a home occupation permit? Definition, when you.
So maybe the bigger issue we should address first is more about businesses before you get to breaking it down into which kind of business. Whether they're home occupations or in the house, out of the house, or short-term rentals, or whatever it may be, we talk about. Local business.
You sent out prepared 2 pages or something like that, and then they had up on different business name and category. Might be good to resurrect.
You know, if we did it, it was hosted and unhosted, it would make that permitting process a lot easier too.
Okay.
If you're gonna have a house that you don't live in, you know, in Arizona, but you're using that in Airbnb, that shouldn't be a home occupation. You live there, you just own that there, yeah, so that.
But it's an occupation at that house. So. So that was my question, what is the criteria for a home occupation permit? There's so many different aspects to what.
Joe, are you referring to the spreadsheet or the table that I had that got the different intensities of business?
I think so.
I could bring it for the next meeting, next meeting.
And I think that the hosted and unhosted, sorry, that I think that that would be hard for somebody who wants to get paid to say, well, I want hosted. Like, I think in the definition of B&B, we would call that hosted.
Yeah,
They could advertise, they would advertise it as B and B.
The application,
yeah.
hosted.
yeah, we would add that as well, definition under that.
Right. Versus an Airbnb, which could be.
And then I think that's split up, go with that, right? Cause I think the only complaints we've ever gotten from a B&B or an Airbnb. From unhosted ones, were drawn by people not anywhere near here. Their corporation or whatever it was.
And to address kind of the lighting, the noise, not the light, noise issue, part of a way to address that is to, which we can do, is put time limits on activities. Or allow, we can put music stops at 10 o'clock when we have.
But who do we have to address that?
We can force it. And if you don't,
I know, hey, Joe,
if you don't, you can, and then only enforce it about the one person that complains, then the other, that person can come back in and say, you know, not impartially enforcing the regulation. That's the problem I have.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to put empathy. But who's, at 10 o'clock, who are you calling to enforce that? The CEO? We barely see him at one of our meetings. I don't know, we're sending him at 10 o'clock to one of the lakes to do.
but it doesn't make it hard, it's both at 10 o'clock.
Well, in principle, I look at enforcement as a separate topic than what our regulations. And I think if the commission feels strongly about enforcing the regulation, we don't have adequate CEO time to enforce the regulation, that becomes an issue that the town government has to deal with. We don't hire this. So enforcement of the regulations, in my mind, is a separate topic. And think it's important to have the regulations so that we can have the ability to have an enforcement action. It's like speeding, all kinds of speed limits, and nobody gets caught until you get caught, but if the signs weren't there to say you're speeding, we can get a ticket.
But when it comes to noise, I believe you can only regulate noise if you have a noise ordinance.
I agree, so I'm not saying we can regulate the noise, but we can regulate the time of activities.
But you
Because-
still need someone to go up, because with noise. I know you said you didn't want to regulate, but as an example, you have to be there when the noise is happening with your noise meter and one foot off the boundary line. So if you're gonna regulate the hours, I would think someone would have to be there to confirm that the activity is happening at that time, not just hearing a complaint. Because people can complain about things and exaggerate and make stuff up. Zoning officers get this sort of neighbors and family members that can't get along, making up stuff all the time. That doesn't mean it's a violation. I don't know that you can take a alleged complaint as a violation when you can't confirm it.
That noise and activity are two different things, because one person playing the radio loud isn't necessarily activity. Group of party going on, yelling, screaming, could be activity, but that one radio playing over here could be even louder than me.
It's a solution to everything, but if we have no regulations,
Right.
there's nothing you can do. And on the, just to confirm that we have been putting time limits on activities. Business activities, we can operate until time of night, even functions, event sites like, managed at like 10 p.m. or
I think they appealed that, so I remember they came back and challenged that.
to 11 o'clock. I think it was time, it wasn't the fact that we had some.
Without all music too. They appealed it more.
To a later time.
I don't even know if they had it. There's a restriction.
Okay. Oh, appealed it to the zoning board. of appeals.
I think they took us to court. So,
That's my recollection. Well, it's accounted for. I don't.
well, they were. Yeah. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I thought our record was better.
Yeah.
And back in the day, Joe Camper used to have the bluegrass up on the old ski lawn.
Yeah.
Changed quite a bit.
He had those before regulations were.
Yeah.
But he could really argue that it was grandfather. But there was a group that tried to have additional events there, and this board said no.
I recall that, yeah. I forgot about that. I just get worried about creating regulations and not having the enforcement capability. And then people coming to us and complaining and saying that you're not enforcing the regulation. And you have this, it says right here, you're not doing anything about it. And that's a concern of mine.
And I think that's a driving factor to say, the commission itself is not empowered to enforce regulations. That's
Correct.
what the town hires. And if we need more enforcement action, then we need a full-time CEO or two, I don't know. But it's-
Well, and that's where I'll come back. Say, if you, on that route, I'm gonna hire an attorney, I'm gonna say, you're not enforcing your regulations, you have nothing in your regulations at any times. So why are you even bothering? So it's selective enforcement, someone personally has a vendetta against me, and you're only doing it against me, and you're not doing anything else. And I can prove that because there's no penalties in your regulations.
So again, that becomes a town ordinance, kind of, not a commission.
No, to me, it's, and I think our attorney told us, we can have penalties in our regulations. Allowed by state statute, probably asked, you further. I think there's been a reluctance by this commission to put those in. And probably a reluctance of the board of selectmen. To me, that's where you go, because then it also gives you the money to pay. The town struggles to balance a budget. And the last thing they want to do is spend even more money. The CEO, or expand their hours and things. They are doing their job and they're enforcing these regulations. And they're collecting fees which help pay for their enforcement. In other words, they're gonna be pleased with the thought this place is filled with people complaining. Because they're getting enforcement actions. That's, I think, what needs to happen.
So is that the first thing to do is, look to create
I
some
have my
fines,
advice.
pay the price, fine.
Clearly, that's where I think we should.
I just want to point out that you could create a finding ordinance and you still might not get the money, the revenue, because your zoning officer might get results by sending out the initial letter, and then because you don't fine right off the bat, you send the notice of violation, then you send the ceases if they don't comply, and then you can fine. I don't think you can fine from day one.
And I would totally agree.
Yeah.
The net effect is you want your regulations to be honored. If that works, then that's fine. It can take up the issue of not having enough money with the selectmen and say you need to fund us. And you fund us appropriate. And then we have to make that case to the town people too, so they understand, right, why we're doing this. So when you complain about your neighbor having an unhosted Airbnb making noise at 11 o'clock at night, you know that the commission has the ability to do something about it.
I think that they got on the board. And Lincoln says not having any fines, you know, what's the consequences for not doing this? But now, is there a whole different fine schedule with this on, for not correcting what's on your special permit? For what you're selling, where you're selling, your hour you're selling, the noise you make. Parking too many vehicles. Is it a flat fee because you're not in compliance, or, you know, it's, I like the idea of having consequences, but how do we set that up?
And I'm not, you certainly can keep that number of attorney. I'm not looking at $10,000 a day.
Right.
It could even be as simple as $50. Then it gets their attention.
Right.
And $30 to $10, $5, but 30 days or 90 days of that. All of a sudden, it's something, well, maybe I really need to. But clearly, zoning officers can have to send a letter first and let people know.
So if that's something you want, I can ask the attorney to give us some information on what the options are for creating a finding ordinance. And if that's what you want to pursue, then we could, after he gives us the guidance. But like you said, Woodstock hasn't had that in the past, or I don't have experience with that. In the meantime, if you wanted to work on an amendment, you want to pick which topic, then we can pursue it. And when it comes to multifamily housing, you could come to that meeting that I wanted to have and be part of the regional discussion, and then you'll get input from more people perhaps than what you might get showing up to our meeting. And then you could take the information and help you move ahead with an amendment if you wanted to.
Julia, what's the date of that meeting again?
I haven't finalized it yet. I'm hoping it'll be one in December and then one either in January or February. A two-part thing.
Can I ask the rest of the commissioner? Is short-term rentals? Is that something you feel that we can address quickly? Deal with the issue with our definitions, deal with posted and unposted, and make it a fairly simple approach, or do you think it needs to be more extensively addressed?
If we're to, me personally, if we were to address it, I would like to make it as simple as possible. You know, just clarify the definition.
I agree. Clarify that.
I just think, you know, kind of so that we know how many there are in town. Not that we're gonna just make it simple and easy. Yeah, people have better tendency to do it, it's simple and easy.
I don't see any reason for it to be drawn out complicated. If we're doing it simple way.
Well, they just make real restrictions on it. It really boils down to, I think, one concern, one area, the town.
So if you wanted to pursue it, I would still like you to address the questions, so I can send it to you in the form of a survey, and if you'd all answer the survey, then we have the results at the next meeting.
Survey monkey?
Yeah.
I mean, and again, that's. How many? I think it had to be right, but how many B&Bs we have registered in town? You know, from what we saw in the room here, we have a lot more, whether it be, you know, hosted or unhosted, short-term rentals going on than the town knows about. And is that a problem?
How many are actually permitted?
That doesn't say how many registered is, and so that goes back to my question to who is required to get, whether it be a home occupation permit or mow your neighbor's lawn for them, $10, do I have to get a home occupation permit because that's my home occupation, or what's?
Well, there is a definition of home occupation, and that's a perfect example. You start with one lawn. And you're a kid. Right. But that has an impact on the neighborhood. Much different than we have on East Woodstock. You know, it's a tree curve. There's a lot of equipment parked on a very small parcel.
You know, and with the home occupation permit, we have restrictions or distinct for how much customer parking. But it's not saying how much of your own park.
And I just, so, you know, short-term rentals, I really think the issue is septic system. Noise is one of the things, particularly on the lakes. And septic systems just need to be inspected, make sure that they're, compliant. You have an old.
You know, now if you went, let's say you wanted to create another bedroom and put in another bath, because you want to do some kind of a home occupation. Okay, you gotta pull a permit and you gotta go to the health department again. Right? Now, what happens, you know, with an Airbnb? You're opening up.
You can have 27 bathrooms. It goes by the center, by the size of the, by the number of bedrooms.
Right, so, but you're creating something, aren't you? You're
Not necessarily.
additional.
Occupancy, we just have 26 additional rooms. Use it. It's not creating any more, it's just. Have more places to be able to do it. But, like, your point well taken, Wade, it's. You add on, you gotta get, you add a little bit. You have to get it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about the other lakes, the other lake districts, but, in the lake district that I'm in, we require a septic pump out every 3 years in an inspection. And that is enforced. And what we will do is we will actually add an additional tax to your tax bill when it comes out, if you're not in compliance. You'll get a certified, mail, letter first. But you have to send in a copy of that pump out and that inspection into our planner. So that way, there's a spreadsheet that's maintained and it's always checked.
Do you have some people enforce these?
We have a septic cop. So it's kind of interesting and really, for the most part, everybody's, once in a while, you get somebody that says, well, we only go up there 3 times a year. I don't see why we have to do this. Well, when you sign your mortgage, you agree to all that in the rules and regulations, bylaws and deed and restrictions. So, but it's just it's interesting, And like you said, Doug, some of them, there's not too many left. There's been a lot of septic replacements on it, but there's still a few kicking around. They're very old, and there are still quite a few dug wells. So they're shallow.
And for the record, which lake, I don't know which one, Bundy or which one?
Lake Bundy. Fire officer.
So you want to pursue short-term rental and I'll send you all a survey to answer those questions?
Sure. That'd be good.
Anything else? You trying to come up with a list of priorities, more than one thing, Dealey, or just one?
Well, we do have to get started on the PZC because that takes a while.
Yeah.
So, affordable or multifamily housing is important, so I don't know which one you want to put first, or if you wanted to wait until I have that regional meeting, like I said, and then once you have some more input, then you could decide how to proceed with that topic. And for the POCD, we could, send a link out to all the boards and commissions and ask them to send us their comments. Or I could write up a survey and ask people to answer questions about it. And we could do a survey of the public, but I draft the questions and ask you if you guys wanted to add any questions to it. And then we would have to advertise it.
I think it would be good to
Last
send
time
out a
we got like 200 and something, 273 responses, I think. But this time I would also use the QR code, which we didn't do last time. So I think we get a lot better response. When I did the surveys for the affordable housing plans of all the towns that I've done them for, we had, I think, 473 responses for our survey, and Canterbury had 330 something. Compared to the other towns that I've heard about, our surveys are like hundreds more responses than their other towns are getting.
I think it's amazing, like 200.
No, because we have, I don't know, I just promoted them differently. Canterbury happened to be handing out their surveys when they were handing out COVID tests, so I had a really big jump in my responses on those days. Cause we were doing the update plan during, when we were still having to hand out COVID tests from town hall.
Well, when you pay your taxes, you get a survey when you get your receipt.
Older now. Oh, I'm wasting my time. I gotta tell you, plan of conservation and development is a waste of time. We did one 10 years ago. We haven't done anything based since then, since we did it. We haven't looked at it. We haven't reviewed any of the objectives. Biggest objective that we have in there is about agriculture and encouraging agriculture, but also making sure that people aren't using the agricultural method to skirt our regulations. Yeah, that's the topic that I would suggest before we do our POCD review. Because then maybe you can address some of the things that were in the original. And say, we are looking at this. Because, and we're seeing it. People are, they see the opportunity to use that town where we are pro-farming. And they can create other uses on that by saying they're a farm. When there are three-quarters of an acre, I'm telling you on the farm. Since I'm a farm, I can have a building out front, sell things. That maybe I make there, maybe I don't. You don't address that in regulation. I think that's an important point for us to look at.
And I feel like with the work we've been doing on that, we're really not very far off from coming up with something meaningful.
And also, we can bring in the agricultural group and have them, that was as part of our POCD is to relate with these other commissions. And that would actually demonstrate the doing. I don't know how many plans of development, regional plans of development, affordable housing plans of development, that just sit on the shelves and nothing ever happens.
Well, you're right. I'll argue in the sense that, during the POCD plan drafting process, we got a lot of community input. And part of the takeaway of that was that residents overwhelmingly felt that they wanted to maintain the agricultural, rural character of the site. So that was, I think that was kind of phrasing in the POCD, which I think helped me during these committees understand what we want to do. So I wouldn't say it took a long time, and I think it came up with a number of suggestions of what we should be looking at over the 10-year period. Whether we could afford to it or not, a lot. It's a different story. But my takeaway overall is that residents like the town of Woodstock.
And I'm just being a pain. Here you are. They don't want anything to change. They don't want another house built. They don't want another business built. They don't want anything. But meanwhile, we would like to have affordable housing and we would like to have farms succeed and business, but we want to maintain them. It's hard.
It's hard,
It
right?
really is. And that's why I think we have to concentrate on addressing that issue.
Yeah.
How are we going to allow farms to be successful before we develop another amendment to this POCD, which we haven't done any of the work that was outlined in this original.
Great. Now it'd be nice to see the industrial park built. It'd be nice to see some other actions, you know, and stuff. But at the same time, you know, keep the agricultural value of the town and return of the town. And, you know, be business friendly at the same time. You know, to other companies and businesses.
And I'll be quiet so people can.
I will say that, in a meeting we had at some point, I don't remember what it was, but a member of the audience got up and comment about Rogers versus Woodstock development. It's been in there, it's, you don't even see it, you know, it's there. So I try to be conscious of that when thinking about bringing a business into town that, you know, it's always been there. I've been in town to a point of here. There, so, turn right out of my driveway into the neighboring town of Eastford, there's a Dollar General. Just kind of fits in there now, it's just there, and I find it quite convenient. So,
Well, just going, think of it, when you said that, how Rogers Park's there. How many, there's a fair amount of trucks in and out of Rogers Park. And that's a small road. But I don't really hear, I haven't heard neighbors complaining about trucks. Over in there. You know, we have a lot of concern, other places, you can't have trucks on these roads, no trucks on these roads. 5 minutes for there's a lot of trucks. There are enough trucks that come in and out, and I could be wrong, there may be complaints about them, but.
There are complaints, and Rogers is dealing with it.
Yeah, so.
Because they, just so I give you an example, Rogers would have, trucks would come all day. So that means constant traffic, and then they realized that they could come in the morning, they could come in the afternoon, it'd be better than to have it all day.
Exactly.
But if you want to, interested, look at our light regulations, you go over to Rogers at 5 o'clock in the morning and see how bright it is. And like a bike road. It is,
Right.
those from, out the road. It's kind of low, but it does nestle in there. And but Rogers is an excellent corporate citizen, because there are noise complaints from them. And they come out and they try to figure out what's going on.
Most of the trucking complaints that I've seen are from like gravel companies coming through.
Yeah, right.
I have gone right down to Rogers and complained about a truck cutting me off at the end of Woodstock Road. I had the license plate number, and they're like, we'll take care of it. And they did, yeah, they did. I was just, wasn't even, I usually, trucks come in, I check, but this guy just screamed through that. I just, wasn't a good day. And I was like, not today, I'm good pain in the butt. Might be tough.
Nothing to do with that. I drive that truck that says, this is Doug's truck. I'm to the point now when I'm on Doug Hill Road, if there's people behind me, I let them go by. Because I set my cruise control. If I go 40 on Doug Hill Road, I'll hear it back. But if I go, remember first today?
Yeah.
If you got behind him,
Oh, man.
it was a long ride.
But if Doug Young got behind you, he was gonna go by in a matter. The first opportunity, it didn't, and it wasn't always a good opportunity to go by. Just go by.
I'm trained to count the trees every stop sign. People get upset, why is he moving?
Last year's one. We good? Good. Moving on to agenda item 6, which is old business, review of home occupation permit applications. I don't have any. I don't think anybody else had any in your packets. Non-residential zoning permits. Those. Brings us back to citizens' comment again. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak or have any questions? Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
State your name for the record, please.
Sure. Laura Curley, 58 Public Rock Road in 29 Hiawatha Heights, Lake Bunny.
Thank
I, as you're getting closer to talking about short-term rentals and the differences in what's coming up, I just want to add one other thought maybe, and that's our deed restrictions in our private lake and our private roads. And when the commission is considering zoning, because the short-term rental, Airbnb short-term rental will have the most impact on the waterfront, whether it be on Chamberlain. I saw a few Airbnb as for Chamberlain Lake, and I didn't know if it was a lake or a pond, but it's prior to the lake. But and I think private, what does it mean? So private lake is owned by the people that have purchased, those properties around that lake, and we maintain the roads, not public roads. So that private road is not open to the public, and I know that public uses them on occasion, but with having Airbnb businesses on the lake, unhosted businesses that are, maintained by site managers that the property owner, I guess, hires to be a site manager. They're inviting the public on a private road structure, infrastructure that's questionable. And I don't know how many, I was trying to think how many miles of dirt roads and roads we have around the lake.
There's 7 miles of road around the lake.
Okay, so it's 8.5, well, wasn't too far off. So those are, 7 miles of roads that we need to maintain as owners of property on the lake. And, in the lake itself, some of the people that had also looked up to, homeowners on the lake and Lake Fun, because that's what I know the most about. And we were talking about bedrooms and how many people, right? So, cottage on Hiawatha that's, been having guests, paid guests. It's a 3 bedrooms, it has 7 guests, it has 5 beds and 1 bath. And so you say, okay, how does that work out? So the description on those beds or bedrooms, 1 bedroom is a loft. It's not really a room, it's a loft, so that makes me question, fire. Okay, I don't know. It's a large open space, sort of like some of the churches we have around here, and if there's a fire, it seems that you don't have a lot of protection for those 3 beds that are up in that loft that aren't a bedroom with a door, but a bedroom. And then the other 2 bedrooms have double beds. And so safety, sewer issues, water, roads. I think the lake districts are, I think we need as a town, because I live in the community district, in the lake district. I think they're different, and you have to look at them differently. And I'm hoping that while you're deciding, because of an Airbnb rental, the transient guests, last weekend, there were four cars in the cottage that's renting on Hiawatha. None were the homeowners. And there wasn't a noise issue, but it was those 4 guests that were in and out that wouldn't normally be. They were occupying, I'm guessing, the whole 3 bedrooms, including the loft with the 3 single beds. So I think there's more than just saying it's just renting out a room. It's just income. Airbnb is an $81 billion company for a reason. They don't have brick and mortar. They have hosts. So isn't that lucky for them? And last year, again, it was $9 billion in revenue. Airbnb had net revenue between June and June of this year. So I just hope that we look at that as a community, especially on the lakes. Because that's what people want. If I'm going to rent, wow, rent on a lake, this is great. There's 4 kayaks for adults and 2 kayaks for children. It's a lot extra boats that you're watching as you're trying to use the lake that you're in property on. So that's my only concern. I hope we can look at the district as it is. It's different than our community when we have 3 cottages. And I don't even know if it's an acre between my neighbor, myself, and my other neighbor. So that we're close. And we have cottages that are 8 feet. They just renovated one on Hiawatha that I'd like to bring out my measure and see if there really is 8 feet, because he looks like he's right on. And I'm saying, well, so you have to do a septic. Septic is in the front. So what do they do? I mean, it's huge. I don't even want to think about it. And so, he got a building permit, assuming the health department looked at it. But how many people how many guests can be in there, but that's number of people, obviously they're not renting it, but they could, right? You allow it. And where do you find who has asked for a permit? Like
You can go to the zoning officer,
the zoning office. And that's through,
the town hall.
oh, okay, perfect.
I think they only work a few hours a week, so you might want to check the schedule before you go down.
Yeah, I'm
Building
just curious.
permits are in the building office.
Building,
Building permits are in the building office.
okay,
Zoning permits are in the land use office. upstairs.
yeah, so probably need just to see if they have some permit. Right. I don't know, I just like to think about all the districts in this.
Just to clarify, when we probably still do it the same way, the zoning permits should be stored in the same file as the building permits, because they only have so much space for permits.
They're not.
They're not anymore.
I can tell you today, all the building permits are in the zoning office.
Not-
The building permits are in the building office. All of a sudden, there's a lot more room in the building office because all those files are gone. I went to get it. The zoning office, unfortunately, is sick right at the moment.
Oh.
They're closed tomorrow anyway. You don't have to, don't go bother.
You're saving your trip.
They do. Well, I tried to have town hall. Thank you.
Joe, I just had a quick question, Laura. I wanted to know, is the Lake District also working on its own standards? I thought that was something that was discussed several months ago.
Well, we do have regs and bylaws
Yes.
already in
Which can
place.
be more
We do have noise regulations.
Yeah.
That we attempt to follow, and for the most part, people are pretty good about it. Except if there's a storm and you have your generator going, you lost power, but
What is the Airbnbs? Or
Um,
regulations, like district,
yeah, well, zoning, right?
well, not zoning, but
Other than our, yeah, but if zoning, if it wasn't allowed in the town, then that wouldn't be an issue at all for us. But to create our own, right, and then the town says, well, they can't follow your rules, they need to follow our rules.
no, necessarily. You can make more restrictive rules.
The lake could be more strict in the town, but you would have to enforce your own rules for them to mount it. Just like the town could be more, in some ways, can be
More restricted.
more restricted than the state.
Well, it's good to know.
If the state doesn't allow something, the town can't allow it. So if we don't allow something, you can't allow it.
There's no reason why the lake can't amend the bylaws or amend the deed covenant restrictions.
Right,
There's no reason.
but to do that, you need over 50% of the landowners, not just the people who attend the meeting.
Yeah, which is in the bylaw. It says what you're required to have. to make
Right.
a motion pass.
So I think that the board has talked to the attorney about different things on what to do. And we have a meeting coming up, so maybe I'll attend that just to see if we can be maybe a little active, as long as I was under the impression that we would be, it would be a futile mission to try to create our own restrictions.
The assumed objections by landowners, in the Lake District, to have restrictions on Airbnb.
Not right now. You're not supposed to have a business on the lake. And so because it's in a residential property, they're all they're kind of leaning on Airbnb that's saying active or passive income that you're earning on your property. And so if it's passive, then you may not have to abide by the rules.
In
Just
regards
saying.
to-
Just, yeah, this is part of it. the activity is definitely business, right? I mean, it's a hospitality, you're providing lodging, you're providing a whole home. And in most cases, and, you're getting paid for that. You're hiring a cleaning service if you have to clean those 7 beds and get ready for the next weekend or whatever. And, you're getting. So, but that's good. It's a new mission. No, thank you.
Thank you.
They are a zoning district, all the lakes together are the lake district. And the thing is, when I first started working here in 2006, you had zoning since 1992, but you had no zoning map. If you can imagine how hard it is to explain zoning to people without a map. And at the time, we only had 2 zones, maybe not that big of a deal, but you still had zoning. So what we had was whole town as community district, except for the industrial park district over by what was Crabtree and Evelyn. And then you had different standards for the lake areas, but you didn't have them in a different zone. You can't treat a part of town differently. You have to treat them all the same. So because the zoning regs were treating them differently, because you had different setbacks based on whether you were on a private road or not. So I recommended that the commission create a zone for the lakes because they really were being treated differently, at least for setbacks. So we created a lakes zone to follow the same areas that were already recognized as the lake tax district. So they happen to be the same part of town, but taxes and zoning are 2 different things that just happen to overlap. So Pond Factory and Rosen Lake, they're not part of it. Any of the other lakes are not part of the lake tax. Or the lake zoning district. And at the time, no one wanted to change the list of uses. So the list of uses in the lake zoning district and the community district are the same, but they don't have to be. Which would require a text amendment if you wanted to change them, but each zone can have their own tailored list of uses and special permitted uses. It just would require an amendment.
Anyone else? Anyone else from the audience like to speak?
If I may,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify on who the 2 of us are. My name is Kyle Pazienza, and I'm a member of the field ecology class led by Ms. Lovegreen in the Woodstock Academy. Me and my friend Con, we are both here to take notes on this meeting as it is part of our responsibility in class to go to 2 town meetings, 1 for each quarter that we are in the class, and take notes on the meeting. Your names are not mentioned in it at all, but it is. But it's part of our responsibility as part of ecology. So thank you all very much for your time and for taking time out of your days as citizens to fulfill this duty.
Well, welcome and thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
to come
Come
anytime. Yeah. You don't have to just be twice per quarter. You can come every other Thursday.
Yeah.
The first or third.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, first and third.
Very much.
I'm actually from the town of Pomfret, so I came because Don invited me. But the comparison between the 2 towns is very interesting. There's a lot fewer meetings. Last quarter, I attended the agricultural meeting in Pomfret, and they only meet every other month, which I thought was interesting to hear that you guys meet bi-monthly.
Well, planning and zoning is completely different than agriculture, so
Definitely.
we have a lot more going on than they do. I'm sure.
Plus, Pomfret is less than half the size of Woodstock, so it definitely makes a lot of sense to have that comparison. So again, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to remind everybody. Correspondence item number 8 that Delia sent us all an email about Land Use Commission in-person basic training November 29th, 2023. It's at the Putnam Town
town hall at 6:30. I signed up, although I did not get kind of confirmation, I don't believe, but they are asking for an RSVP if you can, you don't have to, but it is preferred. So,
Can you sign up online, Jeff? Or the-
I did,
It's in the link in the minute.
and it's actually a QR code as well on advertising, so.
So when you sign up online, we're asking people to fill in what topics they'd like to learn about, if we were to have future workshops.
Are you offering anything on outboard engine rebuilding?
No, and I think that did not make cut.
Julia, by the way, we'll put it in the packet. The couple meetings that you're gonna host for, that you wanna have, bunch of input. We're gonna get. Would credit be given?
Probably.
Good,
And that's
good.
before I-
Cause there's gonna be credit given for this one.
But there's an individual credit that you need for housing, but that class is covered.
It doesn't go.
You need like 4 credits.
One of those, one estimate for.
Is NECOG thinking of offering that for the housing? Requirement that we have?
The training that are, for the events that I want to have, I think would qualify, because they have a long list of what your training has to cover. And they would cover some of those things. We might briefly cover the law on affordable housing so that it count. But the bulk of the discussion is not gonna be on affordable, it's gonna be on multifamily and asking those questions, what are the problems and how to. So that we could try to encourage towns to examine the regulations to see where they can add more density. And I've written a housing guide, it's still in draft form, but I'm gonna be sending a link to it and asking people to give me their feedback. So then when we have another event, either in January or February, I'll have hopefully gotten everyone's comments. And then we'll have a final draft and they can share that document with towns to use when they write their regulation amendments that they may consider doing.
Mr. Chairman, I had one other comment. Richard Barrett is retiring, fire marshal, for a whole bunch of years, and John DeBarrow, highway foreman, superintendent, state superintendent, is also retiring. I don't know if they're having,
Chandler.
When are they all retiring?
Next Tuesday.
All the same day?
Well, pretty close. We're having their thing on.
are other people invited to that? Or how is that?
I just got told the day to go.
I mean,
You didn't get the memo?
well, I got an invite. Because I wrote to the board, but I didn't have to. You know, open to other people. It's a public property, so I'm sure it's open. They've done a great service in the town.
Are you suggesting that we, as a commission, just thank you?
Yeah, it would be probably. There are placards on South Common right now, for them. Which was good to see.
That's on the secretaries.
Next meeting is the annual meeting. Election officers and induction of members, right? So next meeting should allow.
As long as they get, do we have a?
Yeah.
And I think.
You know what, Doug, I like it.
About what?
No, I think that, the next meeting's on the 16th, so I think that, the town clerk is gonna do a big formal one-time swearing in on the 14th, so. But as long as the members go, well, no, anybody that's up for election gets sworn in too, so. I'll have to go get sworn in, yeah.
And that was the point I made, so since everyone who's running for PZC is running unopposed. They need to make sure that they're, go to the town clerk and sworn in before our next meeting. Like, Dwight, I think you're running as a full member now.
I don't know.
But, so then he would be a full member at the next meeting if he was sworn in.
I don't think
I think I'm running for alternate.
How are you? Who's
Just
running?
empty.
I can go into my office. and check.
Who's running for Jeff?
No, good. I know I'm running for alternate.
Because there were- The key, I question, I want to make sure that they go to the town clerk.
Yeah.
So they can take their position. They show up at that meeting. Someone liable to ask.
And good point. One more agenda item. Move to adjourn. Second.
The alternates were moving.
By Dwight. Motion by Dean, seconded by Mark. Motion to adjourn by Dean Gould, seconded by Mark Blackmore. Is there any discussion on this matter? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone, for coming. I have 9:22.